I'm really interested in this whole notion of hypermobility that we started talking about the other day, and I wondered if we could just hone in a little bit on how you were saying that you first became aware of it and how it felt in your body to help me so I understand better what my students are going through. And also how the Bones program really gave you something new that you hadn't experienced in your vast experience of somatic work.
I think it developed over time. There was not one particular moment I thought, oh, you're hypermobile. When I look back, it was behaviour of doing gym, doing ballet, doing yoga. Oh, you're so mobile. So getting a lot of kudos. So then the whole self-image becomes that. And accumulatively over a point, getting my back adjusted, so on, doing the Feldenkrais training where I got looser, to the point where I had nowhere where I could go myself. And it was a scary place.
Yeah.
And when I started to play with Ruthy's Bones for Life videos back in those days, you had to fast forward and rewind. Two processes spoke out to me. One was the wrap. I had to use the Bones for Life wrap and bounce on my heels. If I bounced on my heels without the wrap, it didn't feel safe.
Wow.
So I had to get the integration. And the other one was boy's pelvis. It used to be called boy's pelvis. It's now narrow pelvis.
Right.
That one gave me huge ahas, and it took me a while, a few years. Wave was easy, axis took a long time. Maybe it took a year for me to start to really feel where I wouldn't go into too much compression in my thoracic. But I started to sense the lines, the vertical lines, the diagonal lines, the spiral line. And for me, turning was really hard, rotation. And when I started to understand the dynamics of the spiral, then my whole world changed. And I tend to look at now hypermobility more as shearing forces. Not so much the pelvis goes out or your hips go out, or I tend to look at it more as of lines of force and what did I say? Spirals.
Spirals.
And that's not the word I'm looking for. Shearing.
Shearing. Yeah. So instead of being aligned in the joint where the force comes through right in the middle of the joint, it shears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And starting to understand how you can, in the Bones process, not create shearing. The strategies are through the pushing and pulling, the isometric pressure, hand to the wall, foot to the floor, working with the wrap. All these things bring in a level of safety and feedback that you learn in FI that you can actually do yourself. It's really changed my sense of my body, and also as a Feldenkrais practitioner. I work with bone strategies all the time, and I tend to look for shearing forces rather than think of instability.
Nice. So how do you, for example, do you find the process where we put our foot on the knee, you know, where you put the opposite foot and you bring the axis together toward the central line, do you find that gives you that sense of having some choice with shearing forces?
It does, but if there's preparation, if the lumbar's padded with a harness,
right, you have to
if the head is the right height, and for some people it can still be too much. If there's too much deviation down here, you would have to work on narrow pelvis before you did that. So there's increments of when you apply crossing over the midline with force. It depends on the person. It's actually looking at, are they shearing? What are they doing? Getting a sense of stability before some of the stronger ones are introduced. But they work beautifully when it's synchronized, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. Do you have them use the plumb line?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have them do the plumb line before and then after, so they have a sense of their own, what feels right to them and their self-image.
Shifting weight.
Yep, shifting weight,
things,
all of those things. Is there any bones process that you find is difficult for people with hypermobility? I know everybody's individual, but just, curious.
Look, it's really different. Some of the things that triggered me haven't triggered my other students.
Okay.
But the most important supportive factor is the ring muscles.
I was wondering
The
if
ring
you were going to mention the
muscles,
sphincters.
if someone is shearing and they haven't got stability, you use the mouth, you use the fingers, you use... The ring muscles I think it's the backbone of stability in this work.
Yeah.
And when you add pressure and rhythm, it just takes this work into a whole other level playing field that other systems don't have, I think.
It's so interesting that you should mention that, because recently I was with a trainer in his 2-day workshop in San Francisco, and the whole idea was to be really planted, but not by going down in the ground, but staying, going down to go up, if you know what I mean. And what I did was the sphincters, and he couldn't push me over. And he hadn't been teaching us that. But I didn't tell anybody but that.